Welcome to Native Bidaské, Native News Online's weekly spotlight on the people making news and leading change in Indian country.
Welcome to another edition of Native Bidaské. I'm Levi Rickert, your host. And Jonathan Ness, the former president of the Navajo Nation, is running for Congress. He's the Democratic Party's nominee for the 2nd Congressional District in Arizona. On Wednesday, Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury from New Mexico's 1st Congressional District campaigned with President Ness in Prescott, Arizona. And they're here tonight to talk about what's going on out there. And it's always good to see you, President Ness. And Congresswoman Stansbury, it's good to see you again. I met you last year at the White House Tribal Nations Summit. So it's always good to see you. And welcome, both of you. President Ness, you're here to give an update on what's going on with your congressional district race. I think it's going well, from what I understand.
Yes, sir. I appreciate being on the show again, Levi, and a lot of excitement in Arizona in our district. As you know, this district is one of the largest in the country, and I've said to folks that this district is larger than the state of Pennsylvania, and there are 22 tribes in Arizona. 14 of them are in this district. And, I was out on the Navajo Nation Sunday, and people are registering to vote. There's a lot of encouragement and really inspiring for me to be running for this position here. And we all recognize that this is a step up for a tribal member. Especially in Arizona, vying to be the first indigenous person to be elected from the state to the U.S. House of Representatives. And appreciate my good friend here, Melanie Stansbury, Congresswoman from New Mexico, for being here and really rallying up the troops. We just rallied up the canvassers today, and they're out in Prescott Valley today.
And before I go to the Congresswoman, President Ness, is there early voting going on already in Arizona, or when does it start?
It's going to be starting in a couple of weeks, but let me just highlight this. For those of you that are watching from Arizona, the last day to register to vote is next Monday. And, get the word out. We need all the 18-year-old and over to register to vote. The other thing, too, I want to highlight, Levi, is in the state of Arizona, if you did not vote in the state or federal elections, county elections, for the past couple of elections, they take you off the roll. So it's very important that you check up to see your voting status and make sure it's still active. And you can do that. You can go to my website, jonathannez.com, where you can register to vote also and check your voter registration status.
Yeah, we've actually been telling people to do that because so many people are just stricken. And when they get to the precinct to vote, there's a problem. And then they may have to fill out a provisional ballot. And I always wonder if those actually get counted or not. And so who knows, right? But to really make it clean, you go ahead and figure out if you are registered, find out where your status. I actually did it just on a website recently, and I know I'm registered because I've already voted, but I just wanted to see how well it works, and it was so easy to use. And so the viewers, please take that advice that the president just gave you. And Congresswoman, I mean, you took time out of your busy schedule. You're busy. I know you are. Most people in Congress are busy. Why do you think Jonathan Ness should be a congressperson? What are his attributes that you just felt like you needed to go over there and help out a friend?
Well, let me first just say, I think this is one of the most exciting races happening in the United States right now. And if your viewers out there don't know President Nez, haven't donated to him, haven't gotten out to help support him, we want to encourage everyone to do that. First of all, President Nez is an exceptional leader. He's an executive. During his time in the Navajo Nation leadership, he led with such integrity. He worked on all kinds of issues from, addressing land and water issues to ensuring communities had access to health care. Our veterans were taken care of, elder services. I mean, I can't tell you all of the different things that he worked on, but he is an exceptional leader. And I think he has proven his mettle on that. And there are very few people serving in Congress that have that kind of executive leadership experience, who know the President of the United States, who know and have worked with other members of Congress and senators, who've worked with governors, who know tribal leaders, who know the people, who know the language. Like Jonathan Nez is a dream congressional candidate. So, I mean, first of all, let's just go there. Secondly, I serve with the current congressman from this district, and he's an insurrectionist. He doesn't even live in the district. He was one of 8 members of Congress who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy after McCarthy cut a bipartisan deal to keep the government open last year and then left the entire US government in turmoil for weeks. His own members of his own party don't even want him there because of that. And I think that if the people of Arizona, of this district, understood who Mr. Crane is, how he comports himself, the things he says in committee — I serve on a committee with him — I think they would be genuinely shocked and upset to know that he represents this district, because this is a place that is so diverse. There's tribes, there's this beautiful historic town here in Prescott, many veterans. People care about the air, land, and water. They care about culture, they care about language, and they're represented by a guy who lives hundreds of miles from here, who doesn't even represent the values of the people of this district. So that's why I support President Nez. He's going to make an amazing partner. We need his voice in Congress. Arizona has never had a Native congressperson. How is that even possible? Right? How is that even possible?
That's actually incredible. Here we are in 2024, 100 years after the Citizenship Act.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
I understand the Congressman Crane didn't even vote for the continuing resolution recently, right?
I mean, he is part of this very small minority in Congress of these Freedom Caucus folks who vote against everything. And he doesn't care if the government shuts down. He doesn't care if we get anything done. Like, he's not interested in even doing his job. So I don't understand why he's there. Why would you even want to serve people if you're not going to do your most basic constitutional duty?
Well, I'm going to ask President Nez, what's your stance on that? If you're a member of Congress, should you keep the government going?
Well, if you're a member of Congress, I really, truly believe you should live in the district.
I would agree with that.
And
I'm out here in Michigan, so I'm not sure how is that possible. Is that I don't know.
Right. Well,
hey, President Nez, one thing I've always been impressed with, and Congresswoman, I think you've seen it. When President Nez was in office, his vice president was Myron Lizer, and he's a friend of mine. I saw him at the Republican National Convention, and he and I chatted for about 45 minutes at least. But he's a Republican. Well, I was always amazed how well those two work together in sync for the good of the Navajo Nation. And I think by saying that, President Nez, you've already demonstrated you know how to work in a bipartisan fashion to get things done. And I think at some time, as I recall, both of you maybe separately explained to me there were certain things that you knew it was better for you to make that call to DC, and other times it was better for Vice President Lizer, because at that point Donald Trump was president. So you seem to have it down. So why don't you speak to your bipartisanship, how you work together in Congress?
Well, it all started at home. I grew up in a very rural area of the Navajo Nation, no running water or electricity. Growing up in a very conservative home, both my parents being Republican, that bootstrap mentality, that philosophy, as they say in Navajo, self-reliance, self-sufficiency. And of course, I started learning more about the party system, and the Democratic Party embraces diversity, and Congress should look like America in diversity, and we bring that different worldview, if you want to call it that, or different perspective to Congress, but at the same time working on behalf of the constituents. I know everyone might say, well, he was a tribal leader or he was a Navajo Nation president. That's all he knows. No, I was a county board of supervisor. That's when I announced my party preference, which was a Democrat. And yes, we did work across the aisle back then too, working with Republicans to get things done for our constituency. And as you mentioned, having a vice president that was a Republican really benefited much for the Navajo people. You know, the door of the White House was open during the Trump administration for Mr. Leiser, and he was able to go in and get things done. And the second half of our presidency, vice presidency, the door was open in the Biden administration. And, you know, because of that, we were able to bring in, with the help of Melanie, with the help of our Congress, to bring in a lot of resources, not just to Navajo, but Indian country and rural America. You know, historic amounts of dollars going into tribal communities, where we were able to now expand water infrastructure, electricity in the most rural parts of our nation, and expanding broadband and telecommunication. And that's working together. And as was mentioned too, my opponent is one of those that says my way or the highway, and just look at what happened with the ouster of Speaker McCarthy. And my opponent is just in the midst of all the controversy for these past year and a half. And I think the voters of this district have recognized that that's not what they want. They want someone that will speak on behalf of the issues that are important to them. And I will continue to advocate for them for better infrastructure. You know, one of the priorities in this town, in Prescott Valley and the surrounding communities, the need for clean drinking water. You know, water security is very important. And as you know, Levi and Melanie as well, Congresswoman Stansbury, we were able to solidify water rights for the Navajo Nation in New Mexico and Utah. And now there's a discussion in Arizona about the water. And the more water we can bring into the state of Arizona, you know, it will preserve our precious groundwater. And I think with that leasing provision in tribal water rights settlements that allows tribes to lease their water to non-native communities is a win-win for everybody, because it'll bring water to those communities that need it, and the needed revenue to come into the tribes so that they can have economic and community development. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, and water is such a basic need of life. We all know that. And I know I wrote an editorial about it right around the time of the Supreme Court decision. And you can't even have effective economic development if you don't have any water. I mean, what manufacturer is going to go with no water, right? So people need to help the Navajo Nation get past some of this. Congresswoman, you were out with the president today. What are the voters saying out there where you were? Are they on board with the Harris Waltz? We just recently saw the vice presidential debate, and what are they saying? What are the voters saying?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that I'll tell you is that the energy in Arizona is palpable. This is a battleground state, as Hakeem Jeffries said. Actually, just yesterday, I was with him and a number of other members of Congress and candidates. Arizona is a trifecta state. The voters of Arizona will help determine who is president, whether or not the Senate is held by Democrats, and who controls the House. Mm-hmm. So there is no more important time for Arizonans to get involved. And you can feel the energy. I've been out there canvassing. We've been doing some fundraising. We've been doing stuff with volunteers. But we got a short runway to get people out to vote, right? So we've got about a week and a half before early voting starts. People are starting to return mail-in ballots, I understand. So there's a lot of work to do on the ground, and we really need people to help. So if folks are listening to the show who live elsewhere, who are trying to figure out how can I be helpful, come out to Arizona, come canvass, come knock doors.
Knock on doors.
But let me just add on the bipartisanship piece, because I think this goes to the question you're asking about what are Arizonans saying. The American people are tired of the partisan warfare that they're seeing in Congress. Mm-hmm. They want to see a government that does its job just like the American people do, that shows up, that make sure that our military is ready, that make sure that we honor our veterans, that make sure that the water turns on, that we're preserving our lands, that we're taking care of our communities and protecting Social Security. And all of this crazy stuff that's been going on with these partisan wars that Trump has been stoking, what we've been seeing with the House shutting down with the speakership, Eli Crane is at the middle of that vortex. And people are tired of that. That's not even partisanship. That's just poor governance. And what I think Arizonans, like New Mexicans, are looking for is leaders who are willing to work across the aisle, who know how to get things done, and who are going to deliver for the people. And at the end of the day, President Nez has delivered for the people. You know, he has helped deliver infrastructure. He helped the Navajo Nation get through COVID. He helped get infrastructure into communities. He helped expand access to food programs, to healthcare, like you name it, right? And like Eli Crane is voting against the budget. He's voting against the military. He's voted against veterans. He won't even take money that's available to get infrastructure money back to the communities that he represents. So you've got communities that don't even have piped water. They don't have, their roads are a mess. And this man is over there representing them, and he's not even bringing resources home for the community. So at the end of the day, I don't even think that this race is about party. This is about having a competent leader and a great leader that's going to represent these communities with dignity, with honor, and who's going to listen to what people want, who's going to be responsive, and who's going to deliver for them. And I don't think there's a better candidate out there than President Nez to do that.
Well, I like what you just said. And I sometimes, as I look at the work, actually the lack of work that has been produced by this Congress, and I'm sure as a congressman, we've been very frustrated because it's just like, you know, they want to go after Hunter Biden and all this crazy stuff. Should we impeach the president? And it's just,
and now they're going after Waltz and Harris ever since the last few weeks, as if suddenly all this stuff just happened. And it's so transparent that they're using government resources to go after their political enemies. Mm-hmm. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Mm-hmm. But the other aspect of it is that, you know, I really do think, and I think this is what Harris's core message is that, like, the American people just want to get back to normal again, like before all of this got so crazy under Trump and all of the just partisanship and, you know, the way performative politics and all that. I really do think people just want life to be normal again.
I agree. And President Nez, during the 2020 presidential election, as I recall, there were pockets of the Navajo Nation that voted right around 85-90% for Joe Biden. And what are you hearing about the Harris ticket on Navajo?
Well, I think there is a lot of excitement in the tribal communities. Of course, you see it all across the country with the changes at the top of the ticket. Let me just say, you know, President Biden, awesome president. He's going to go down as one of the best presidents of all time. I mean, in Indian country, right? In Navajo, his nickname or his name was Joe Ba'i. Joe Biden, Joe Ba'i. You know what Joe Ba'i means in Navajo? What? That means compassionate one. And he lived up to his name these couple of years and really brought in a lot of resources in rural America and into tribal communities. And I think, you know, he'll be remembered by that. I think as we go into the future, you know, as Congresswoman Stansbury mentioned, we need to get back to the middle, you know, and I'm going to say this, I know it's a talking point that I've been using, but it's true. You know, the far right, we need to make sure that they recognize that this country, we want our country back. And let's also include the far left, because many of the people are right in the middle, and all they want is a better future for themselves, their children, their grandchildren. And it's like we say in Native American communities, 7 generations and beyond. And those are the things that the folks here from Prescott Valley to Coolidge, all the way up to Kayenta, all around the district are talking about. The high prices of food and gas and Congress does have an influence on that. Companies and corporations shouldn't be having record profits, right? Especially during this time. And we need to hold them accountable, and it shouldn't be on the backs of the hard workers of this country. And we need to reset. And I think we have an opportunity to take back this country from the extreme part of our parties and, reset that where we all work together for the people, listening a lot more. I remember the days when leaders used to listen and not just tell us what they think is good for us, and also focus on the future. Yeah.
And can I add one thing that I think is, just important context around this election, especially for our Native communities. And that is that we know that Kamala Harris understands, respects, and supports tribal sovereignty. And we have her opponent, who has spent his career as a businessman undermining tribal sovereignty with business deals. And during his time in the presidency, his own interior executives actually interfered with several tribes' tribal acknowledgement processes. And so there couldn't be a more stark contrast between on tribal issues, on tribal governance, on sovereignty, on caring for our Native communities. And I worked at the Office of Management and Budget during the Obama administration when the Tribal Nations Conference first began, which you were just referencing a few moments ago. And that was a sea change. In the 200 and plus years that the United States has existed, there had never been a formal government to government conference every year where the President of the United States met with all of the 570 plus federally recognized tribes of this country in a formal setting that way. And during the Trump administration, what was going on? Was there consultation? Was there engagement? There might have been some, but we know that there was a systematic effort to really undermine sovereignty across the board and to try to take us back to the kind of termination era politics of like the 1950s. And so what we know is that Harris is going to take us forward. She's going to keep investing in these communities. She's going to respect our tribal leaders. She's going to continue to do those nation to nation engagements and continue to do the hard work for the federal government and the U.S. government to make good on its treaty and trust responsibilities and to respect our tribal nations.
Yes. And sometimes we get some feedback from our readers, and they'll say, "Well, Biden hasn't done one thing for us, and this administration." I'm thinking, you really have not been paying attention. You haven't been paying attention to Native News Online because we report on it. The right. $45 billion plus that he has brought to Indian country is just downright incredible. The 80 high visible jobs within the federal government, including Secretary Deb Haaland. And you actually ran in her district after she left, right, Congresswoman?
I was going to say, our very first Indigenous cabinet secretary in the history of this country was appointed by Joe Biden. And
it's just downright incredible. And so, and actually it was very interesting in Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, he had a round table at the Republican convention. I went to both conventions, so just so our viewers know. And we try to cover it in a very, impartial way, and as we're supposed to. However, I have eyes and ears, and I know what's going on, so I form my own opinions. But I'm going to say this: that he said that he had got called by Donald Trump down in Mar-a-Lago in I say March of this year, and he said, you're Native American senator, and we just didn't do a good job. And he blamed it on the fact that Zinke left. Well, he got rid of Zinke, or Zinke left because of ethical problems. And I thought it was such an interesting that and we're going to do a better job with Native Americans next time. And so I just kind of laughed it off. But I just thought that was interesting that Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, he thought that might be a selling point, I guess, to some Republicans. And I don't know, if President Nez, if you read my editorial, but I went looking for delegates at the Republican convention. I couldn't find any. I think there were a total of 3, but I could never find them. So I thought that was interesting too. But I went to the Democratic convention. Both days, the caucus rooms were packed with Native Americans, and it was so good to see. And so, like I say, I have ears and eyes, and I can make my own judgments. So, hey, Congresswoman, the water settlement, the Navajo water settlement, does it have a chance on the? I don't know if it will be the lame duck Congress by the time the election is over. It would be after the election, but does it stand a chance this Congress?
So there's actually several settlements that the Navajo Nation has introduced this Congress. The larger of the 2 settlements, the Arizona side one, is a really large settlement. And so, the challenge with getting settlements through Congress is always finding the budgetary offsets to make good on the infrastructure responsibilities in them. And then recently, a Rio San Jose Navajo bill was just introduced last week, I believe, and I'm on both of those bills. I think that we have a really strong chance of getting a native water settlement package pulled together in a lame duck. Speaking of Zinke, Montana has a couple of water rights settlements they're trying to get done. California in former McCarthy's district, there's a settlement there that we're trying to get done with the tribe. And then we have, I believe now 6 bills that affect tribes in New Mexico, and then there's several Arizona settlements. So there's a lot of bipartisan interest in getting some of these water rights settlements done. But I also want to mention that the Navajo New Mexico side of the settlement, that passed in 2009, I believe, was when that first one got passed. And part of the deal in the bipartisan infrastructure bill that we passed in 2021 under Joe Biden's leadership was to make sure that the funding was secured to finish the pipelines to get the Navajo Gallup water pipelines in. And that infrastructure is literally being built right now. And so homes it sounds like the one you grew up in, although I don't know exactly where you grew up in, that, hopefully over the next several years, some of the homes that have not had access to getting piped water will be a lot closer because of that.
And John, President Ness, I keep trying to slip here, but tell me this, and I know you're a champion for the Navajo people because I was impressed with how you navigated through the pandemic, and you were out there, giving out. I remember running stories. You ran a lot of stories where you were basically on the street handing things out to your constituents, the Navajo people and your people. How do you convince non-native Arizonians that you're going to be a congressman for them as well? Take that same spirit of championship.
Right. I mean, there's so much similarities, for everyone. 5-finger people, I always say in Navajo, that's what we say. We're all 5-finger beings, no matter the politics, no matter the religion, we're all wanting basic necessities, and infrastructure, is needed everywhere in this country. There's aging infrastructure. We need to get them rebuilt. We need to get new infrastructure. And I have a history of bringing resources with the help of Congress. It's being in Congress is not on-the-job training, Levi. I have 18 years of public service experience. And you build a network over those years. You learn from others. And we utilize my wife. I want to include my wife in this because my wife is a part of, my elected years in office. And she's been there helping out along the way. And we were able to use our network to, get things done for the Navajo people. That was my constituency, obviously.
Correct.
At a larger scale. And I'm going to bring the same heart, the same hard work for everyone in this district. And it's not going to be anything different. The needs, water, right? I've heard that in non-native communities through these past several months. The need for water, the need for broadband and telecommunication, fixing those roads, fixing those bridges, And I think here I'm going to do the same effort that I did for the Navajo people for everybody in this district. And it's not it's not all about party, Levi. It's about the American people. It's about the constituents here. And I'm going to fight my hardest again when I become their congressman. And it's for those that voted for me and those that didn't vote for me. I'm going to do the same thing I did over the 18 years of public service and getting things done.
That's a really great answer. Congressman, I'm going to let you have the last word tonight because I know we have to go, but I appreciate you helping out my friend out there in Navajo. And so go ahead.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think I can add anything to the amazing words that the president said, except for I will acknowledge and say that he has an amazing wife as well.
I bet her. She's very nice.
Amazing team you guys get when you get the Nez's in a leadership role.
And you remember, Levi, I said you get two for the price of one, right?
But in her own right, she's a leader. She's in the arts community. I mean, she served on national boards. She's such an incredible person. So, I mean, listen, we all know the stakes of this election. But I do think that it is really, really important that people understand how close this race is, how winnable it is. And I will say that it also has national significance. While it may not be about party for the people that we represent, the ability for us to keep moving our country forward and to stop the just complete dysfunction that is going on right now is to have good leaders in Congress leading. And in the House of Representatives, I believe that Hakeem Jeffries is the Speaker of the House that we need to get our country back on track. And we need 4 more votes in the House of Representatives to put Democrats back in control and restore sanity to the House of Representatives. And there are 3 pickup opportunities in Arizona alone, and Nez's seat is one of them. So if we can pick up Nez's seat and we can pick up the other 2 seats, we're almost all the way there to winning back the House. So if you care about our democracy, whether you live in Arizona or not, support Jonathan Nez's race.
And to our viewers, Chi Miigwech, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Native Bidaské. With us today, we had distinguished Congresswoman from the 1st Congressional District in New Mexico, Melanie Stansbury, and the distinguished Jonathan Nez, former president of the Navajo Nation, running a good race out there for the 2nd congressional seat in Arizona. And as we talked about earlier in the show, if you don't know your registration status, your voting registration status, please go to Jonathan Nez. Say it one more time.
Yeah, jonathannez.com, where you can give if you are able to give to a campaign. You can register to vote, and you can also check your voter registration there at jonathannez.com.
Okay, very well. And early voting is about ready to start in Arizona, and encourage all Native Americans to vote. It is so essential that you get out and vote. And it's I have voted in every presidential election since I've been 18 years old, and I'm an old man now. So I just really am a strong believer. Sometimes Native Americans say, why do you vote in the white man's election? And I have one answer. If I'm going to pay their taxes, I'm going to vote. So I'm happy to do it. So, and both counts. So tune in next week to another episode of Native Bidaské, Chi Miigwech, and take care of your elders. Give them hugs.
If you appreciate what we do here at Native News Online, we invite you to donate to support our continued work covering Indian country. You can scan this code with your smartphone or go to the link located below this video to donate today. We greatly appreciate your support. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And be sure to scan this code or go to the link below to subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you for joining us today, and please be sure to join us again next week for another episode of Native Bidaské. Chi Miigwech.